Christmas. Such a lovely, heartwarming holiday to relax and enjoy with your family. Everyone has at least found fond Christmas memory, and if you say you don't, well, you're just straight up lying to yourself. I am no exception to those happy memories of the festive day. Drinking cocoa, relaxing by the fire, hanging up ornaments with my family, the usual things like a child would enjoy during the holiday season. However, there is one Christmas I would never forget, but not in a good way. The year was 2009. I was 5 years old, living in a large farmhouse off the rural Fairmount, Indiana. We usually spend Christmas at my grandmother's home, but this year we decided to do it in our own home. The setup was perfect. We had lights in the front of the house and the large barn, festive with tablecloths, and of course the big shining pine tree in the living room, decorated with lights, ornaments, tinsel, and the usual works. December went through quickly. Joyful occasions and activities were done within the family, and everything went through normally. Soon it reached Christmas Eve. The young me bounced around with relentless, unending energy in my pajamas around the home. Each time I went past the living room, I eyed the tree and of course the gifts that lined the door under it. It was just for me. Well, and my step-siblings, of course, but that didn't matter. This routine continued for several minutes until my mother told me it was time to go to bed. With some protest, I was eventually tucked under the covers and sent to sleep. My unlimited bounty of energy now seeming to have been depleted entirely. It wasn't long before my eyes closed and I drifted off into the grasp of sleep, with hopes of Santa coming through the night in my thoughts. I was awakened by a loud thud. My eyes gently fluttered open, still droopy, and my body groggily. Through my hazed and exhausted vision, I could just make out the figure of something in front of the large door, assuming the thud had been from slamming and shut it off of it. It was tall and incredibly thin, almost looking sickly. I couldn't make out any facial expressions, with it being too far away, and me being so tired, but I could see that its face was partly shrouded by the veil of thin, disheveled, greasy gray hair that was missing in clumps from the scalp area, as if it had been forcibly torn out itself. Adorning its head, along with the hair, were two long twisted horns, like some sort of billy goat. The sight was enough to make my head spin. Was this Santa? Was Dad went through my mind? It looked around, hunched over, like an animal searching for prey to pounce on. Eventually, it seemed to have locked its gaze on me. Its head spun and turned, popping sounds coming from its neck, like they were painfully cracking with each change of angle. My body immediately froze, a light gasp and trying to leave my throat, but not a single sound came out. My sleepy eyes were now wide, locked onto the hidden face of the things, as it tilted its head curiously. I couldn't see a mouth, but it just felt like it was giving me a malicious grin. Quickly my hands threw the covers over myself, clutching them and holding them like a shield over myself, something any child would do in comfort in this situation, believing that the blankets were a valuable protection. Almost as soon as I did that, a rasping, harsh breath can be heard from the creature's direction. I began to hear light thumps against the creaky wooden floorboards of my bedroom. Footsteps, approaching slowly, monotonously. Now my room was very large. It was actually one of the two living rooms into a room for me, while my parents took my older, smaller one and gave their old room to one of my step-siblings, just so all of us kids could have a room of our own. Even so, with the slow pace of footsteps, it seemed to like growing closer rapidly. The footsteps were closer and closer, and almost lined up with the sound of my heartbeat. My breath was shaky and quick as it approached. Before nothing. The footsteps stopped, just beside my bed. I did my best now to hold my terrified breath. I felt something thin and jagged touch the blanket. At my feet, a finger. I believe it was, passed though as it could have been anything. Very slowly, it dragged upwards, passing my feet, running up the legs through the blanket. My body trembled, my face beginning to burn from how long I was holding my breath. It traveled at a painfully slow pace, trailing up the covers, feeling me through them, until it stopped on my head. It pressed down rather hard in the spot on my temple. I let out a strained cry, unable to hold it in anymore. The fiend seemed to hesitate for a moment before I heard what I believed to be gravely raspy chuckle, and it continued to press down. I swear that it ended up tearing through the blanket, because I could feel the bony fingernail digging into my flesh. It was as if the thing was testing me to see how much pain I could take. I sobbed softly to myself, trying to call out for my mother to come and protect me, but like all my other futile attempts to produce words, nothing but air exited out of my mouth. Soon enough, the thing began to trail down my face again with its fingernail. However, this time it was pressing down forcefully. The nail left a small 1-inch cut along my temple before the pressure was relieved, and the finger was pulled away entirely. Something that sounded like a painful gurgling rang throughout my room until my eyes were met with a shadow in front of me. Seen through the thin blankets, it must have been that creature, getting face to face with me. My eyes were still wide in horror as it grew closer and closer until I could feel its hot, sour breath puff through my cheap fabric. And after that, the feeling was immediately gone. I heard the footsteps again, except this time they were moving away from the bed, back into the direction they had come from. Another gurgling sound filled my ears as it left, lingering in my thoughts. Soon enough, I heard something moving its way up the stairs, opening a door and then closing it, before everything seemed to stop. After a minute of agonizing silence, the prayers that had been completely gone, I shakily lowered my covers to reveal nothing. I don't ever recall such much of the rest of the night, other than me cautiously going to the bathroom to clean up the bloody nose that had suddenly made itself known after I revealed from my covers. At the time, I chalked up the humidifier, which had the tendency to make my nose bleed rather frequently at night. The next morning, I opened my present slowly. Without a word, my mother had noticed a small nick on my head, and concerned, she questioned me on what happened. I lied, saying I was tired and I had tripped and fell against my bedpost. I didn't want to frighten her with any mention of that thing that had been in my room. After that Christmas Eve night, I haven't seen any trace of that thing, no evidence that it even existed, even though to this day I still ponder, each Christmas season, when I remembered it at the corner of my mind, was just exactly was that thing. A sick, messed up person dressed in a costume, looking more terrifying because of my grogginess? Some sort of, dare I say it, demon? I can't quite tell for sure, but I do know one thing. That was not Santa Claus.
What's up, my pretties? It's the Lion Queen here. I want to appreciate you all for tuning into this video, and I do appreciate you guys supporting my video by giving this video likes and stuff. If you really enjoyed this video, be sure to leave a like, comment and subscribe if you're new, ring the bell for notifications to when I upload so that way you guys will get updated for whenever I upload. If you want to follow me on Twitter or DeviantArt, feel free to leave a follow on those if you are interested in following me on those socials. If you want to support my backup channel, known as Ms. Dark Shigo, feel free to subscribe to it, as a link to that will also be in the About page section. And with that being said, and that being the case, thank you so much for watching, my pretties, and as always, stay pretty.